Fanfic Corner, presented by Jennifer. Missing. The marauder was dead silent. It had been that way for a while. Tech sat in the cockpit, tampering with a faulty wire. What should have taken him a few minutes had now accumulated into a few hours. He needed something to keep his mind busy. Instead of fixing the wire, he decided to tear apart the whole control system just to put it back together. He worked without his usual clatter and alone once again. Today was the date that the batch relived. Tech noted every year, though it had been only 2, seemed to be worse as time moved on. The day was still fresh in their minds as if it happened yesterday. He did all he could to avoid the sergeant as he learned in the previous years. Tech looked down at his hands as he held a silver socket wrench. He couldn't help but smile, remembering all the good times it held. He wasn't much for sentimental value, but the wrench was one of the objects he would keep as a treasure that no amount of credits in the galaxy could buy. Ahem. The sudden noise brought Tech back. He took a deep breath in, carefully letting it out as Hunter stood in the doorway. "Hello, Hunter," he greeted, pretending to be working diligently. He pushed his goggles up in hopes of avoiding eye contact and any further conversation. Hunter didn't seem to get the message as he stormed into the cockpit with a furious face. "What do you think you're doing?" Tech rolled his eyes, still focused on his work. "What does it look like? I'm fixing the controls." Hunter tapped his foot, waiting for a better answer. When the technician had nothing more to add, he continued his interrogation, crossing his arms. "What's wrong with it? It was fine a few hours ago. What could possibly have gone wrong in that time?" "Hunter, please leave. I'll have it repaired by sunset. There's still plenty of time." Tech turned away, wanting nothing more than to have his thoughts back to himself. Hunter watched as the sun began to creep down. A golden glow would soon be cast over the planet. They had to leave right now if they weren't going to miss it. He wouldn't miss it for anything, and Tech was in the way of that. "There was nothing wrong in the first place, Tech. I swear, if you're the reason we're too late for this, then what?" Tech cut him off, standing up to meet his brother face to face. "This day isn't just hard on you for you, Hunter," he spat, not caring that Hunter's face scrunched up in anger. Both years the sergeant's emotions were taken out on Echo, Wrecker, and now it was his turn. It wasn't fair for any of them. "Watch it, Tech,"
Hunter hissed, challenging him by jamming a firm finger into his chest. Tech slapped his hand away, pushing him back. Hunter stumbled, falling into a chair with a look of pure shock and rage. But before he could say anything, Tech held up a hand. You're not the only one in the squad that was affected, Hunter. All of us are dealing with the tragedy. It's not the same, Hunter muttered. Tech froze. How could he say that? After everything they had been through in the past 2 years. But, of course, their feelings couldn't match or come close to the sergeant's. Those words added fuel to the burning fire in Tech. He marched over to the sergeant with a look of hatred that he had never worn. Not the same? He asked slowly, his voice trembling as he built up his volume. She was important to all of us, Hunter, Tech roared, feeling his face heat up. Quit acting like you were the only one who loved and cared for her. I did too, you know. Tech. Omega meant everything to me. Her death hit us all, not just you. Tech could feel the tears of anger well up in his eyes. He took a shaking hand, lifting his goggles up and quickly wiping them away. I'm sorry. I didn't... Just get out, Tech trembled, pointing towards the door. Hunter, I said get out. Finally, the sergeant listened, and he slowly left, leaving Tech to himself. Sitting back down, he watched the sun's orange and yellow colors paint the walls of the Marauder. It has been a tradition since to fly over the meadow near them. It was covered in flowers of all different kinds. Tech remembered how Omega had asked about each one, wanting to know the names and facts about them. Later, she had picked him a bouquet, handing it to him with a sweet smile on her face as the sun set behind her. Omega loved the meadow so much, so that's where she rested. Never once had they missed the sunset over the field of flowers since the Empire took away the brightest star in the galaxy. Tech understood why Hunter acted the way he did. He supposed it wasn't his fault. Omega viewed him as a father figure. They had a different kind of bond than the rest, but that didn't mean they loved her any differently, any less. Tech sighed, rubbing a hand down his face. He reached over, picking up his socket wrench. He gave it a sad smile as he set it down in the chair that Omega would usually sit in as she handed him his tools. He went back to work, imagining past conversations he had. He spoke as if she was still there to keep out the fact that of knowing